On the evening of August 29, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense released the latest news on the foreign social media X, confirming the crash of an F-16 fighter jet and the death of the pilot. In fact, as early as a few days ago, foreign media had reported that Ukraine had lost an F-16. But at that time, people thought it was just a rumor. Unexpectedly, it was soon confirmed by the Ukrainian authorities a few days ago. There were news reports that due to Russia's launch of the largest-scale missile attack on Ukraine this year, out of the need for air defense operations, the Ukrainian Air Force dispatched multiple fighter jets, including MiG-29 and the newly arrived F-16, to form a formation and cooperate with the Ground Air Defense Missile Force to jointly intercept Russia's subsonic cruise missiles, ballistic missiles and drones. When the F-16 fleet completed the designated interception task and was preparing to go to the next predetermined location, an F-16 in the formation suddenly lost contact. After other fighter jets returned to the base, there was still no sign of it. Later, the crash site of this F-16 was determined by multiple parties, and the pilot was also confirmed dead. There are rumors that the Ukrainian Ground Air Defense Missile Force shot it down by operating the Patriot missile during air defense operations. But the United States has a different view. A senior U.S. military official said that the main reason for the crash of the Ukrainian F-16 on August 26 was that the Ukrainian pilot was not yet familiar with some operations of the F-16 and the plane crashed due to operational errors. In short, the root cause of the crash of this F-16 has fallen into a rashomon. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense said that a special investigation committee has been established and the cause of the accident will be announced after the investigation is completed. The speed of the crash of the F-16 is truly unexpected. On August 4 this year, Ukrainian President Zelensky announced to the media at the Ukrainian Air Force Day at the Kyiv Air Base that the F-16 fighter jets had arrived in Ukraine. At that time, in addition to the F-16 on static display on the ground, two more roared past in the air. However, less than a month later, the F-16 had an accident. In addition to the friendly fire theory and the operational error theory, there is also a view that the main reason for the crash is that the maintenance of the F-16 fighter jets received by Ukraine is not in place. The F-16s that arrived in Ukraine have an airframe age of more than 30 years and extremely poor overall flight performance due to the large airframe age. Each aircraft needs a long time of maintenance to ensure basic flight capabilities. However, the Ukrainian ground crew team has been formed not long ago and lacks experience in maintaining the F-16. There may be problems in maintenance, leading to mechanical failures after the F-16 takes off. However, this statement also has problems, because Ukraine has almost no decent support base, and the ground crew maintenance personnel lack operational experience. The maintenance work of the F-16 fighter jets is likely to be undertaken by Poland and Romania. The operational error mentioned by the U.S. military is likely related to this. After all, the responsibility cannot be pushed onto these two NATO allies according to official Ukrainian media reports. The number of F-16 fighter jets currently equipped by the Ukrainian Air Force is 10. And it will receive another 10 by the end of this year. The Western Alliance had previously promised to provide 85 F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine, including 20 from the Netherlands, 19 from Denmark, 12 from Norway, and 30 from Belgium. Norway also promised to provide 10 aircraft for dismantling for spare parts. These 85 fighter jets are enough for the Ukrainian Air Force to form for fighter squadrons, according to the existing establishment. Western countries have promised that they may further increase the amount of aid for Ukrainian F-16 fighter jets in the future. But currently, what limits the total amount of F-16 equipment of the Ukrainian army is not the lack of providers, But Ukraine's lack of enough pilots, ground crew personnel and logistical support bases, although Western countries make very attractive promises. In many cases we cannot only focus on quantity and ignore quality. The F-16 fighter jets that Ukraine currently has and will obtain in the future all have an overall airframe age of more than 30 years and are undoubtedly old fighter jets. The F-16 fighter jet has a history of 50 years since its birth. More than 4,900 have been produced cumulatively and are equipped by the air forces of 25 countries and regions around the world. The 10 fighter jets that Ukraine currently has belong to the F-16AB Block 15 and are from the Royal Danish Air Force. The Royal Danish Air Force originally planned to sell 20 for retired F-16 fighter jets to Argentina in March this year. The defense ministers of the two sides even signed a letter of intent on March 26. However, things changed in the middle. Under the arrangement of the United States, Denmark decided to give 19 of them to Ukraine this year. Relevant data shows that the Royal Danish Air Force is equipped with 70 F-16AB Block 15s, most of which are aging. Only 43 will meet the service conditions before 2024, in addition to some retired fighter jets. The 43 in service have also been announced by Denmark that 27 of them will be replaced after the purchased F-35 has arrived. That is to say, if Ukraine is lucky enough, it may obtain 46 F-16s from Denmark alone. But all these F-16 fighter jets were produced in 1990 and have been in service for exactly 34 years. According to official U.S. data, the structural life of the F-16 is 7,000 to 8,000 hours, which is about 25 to 30 years in conversion. With the help of new materials, the structural life of the F-16 Block 70 seconds has increased to 12,000 hours and can serve for a full 40 years. However, this model of F-16 is definitely out of reach for Ukraine. In other words, before Denmark gave these planes to Ukraine, their service lives had already been exhausted. The same situation also occurs in Norway. In 1975, Norway ordered 72 F-16AB Block 15s from the United States to replace the old-fashioned F-100 for fighter jets. This batch of aircraft was delivered in the late 1980s. In 1989, 2 F-16s of the Royal Norwegian Air Force crashed, and then 2 F-16Bs were purchased to supplement them. The total number remains 72. On January 6, 2022, all F-16s of the Norwegian Air Force were retired. In the same year, it was determined that except for 20 to given to Ukraine and to left in museums as exhibits, the rest were all sold to Romania in packages. There is no doubt that the service lives of these Norwegian F-16 fighter jets have also exceeded 30 years. Some domestic military experts commented that since these F-16 fighter jets are generally over 30 years old, their maneuverability is poor and it is difficult for them to make large-scale movements. They simply cannot compete with Russia's 4th generation or even 5th generation fighter jets in terms of flexibility and engage in air combat. This statement is indeed correct. However, perhaps the Ukrainian Air Force did not intend to let them compete for air supremacy from the very beginning. So how will the Ukrainian Air Force use this batch of fighter jets? Among the F-16 fighter jets of the Ukrainian Air Force exhibited on August 4th, one is loaded with AIM-120 and AIM-9M air-to-air missiles. Due to the upgrade of the avionics system, this batch of Block 15 can also use AG-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles, AIM-9X Sidewinder missiles, ADM-160 miniature air-launched decoy missiles, and AIM-7 Sparrow. In terms of ground attack weapons, F-16 fighter jets are expected to be able to use JDAM or Joint Direct Attack munition-guided bombs, GBU-39B small-diameter bombs, French Hammer precision-guided bombs, Paveway precision-guided bombs, AG-65 Maverick, AG-84H Slam-A-Lammer standoff land attack missiles, Storm Shadow cruise missiles, Taurus missile cruise missiles, and air-launched Harpoon anti-ship missiles. It is also worth mentioning that the Ukrainian Air Force is equipped with the JHMCS Joint Helmet-Mounted Cueing System, which is a helmet-mounted sight commonly equipped by Western fighter pilots and is used to replace the traditional head-up display. Simply put, this helmet-mounted sight can display all relevant information in a certain direction inside the helmet when the pilot looks in any direction and assist the pilot in combat operations without having to look down at the cockpit display as in the past. Ukrainian F-16 fighter jets are also equipped with a PIDS Pod Integrated Dispenser System and ECIPS Electronic Combat Integrated Pod System. These two systems are products developed through cooperation between Israel and Denmark. They are used to detect missile threats faced by the aircraft in advance. They have omnidirectional detection capabilities and can identify air-to-air, ground-to-air missiles equipped with radar or infrared seekers. Both of these two systems are new systems that have just been widely equipped by European fourth-generation fighter jets in the past 2 years. From the entire weapon configuration of the F-16 fighter jets obtained by the Ukrainian Air Force, it can be seen that, in the coming period of time, due to their extremely small number, they are unlikely to directly participate in air combat to seize air supremacy. Instead, they are more likely to participate in air defense interception operations in Ukraine's deep airspace, and beyond visual range ground and sea strike missions against Russian territory. Douglas Berry, a researcher at the International Institute for Strategic Studies, believes that these fighter jets have an important role for Ukraine. That is, boosting morale. Understanding this sentence in reverse means that the Ukrainian Air Force is unlikely to let F-16 fighter jets participate in some high-risk combat missions that damage morale. In short, for a long time in the future, or at least within half a year to a year, unless Russia destroys F-16 on the ground. Otherwise, it should be quite difficult for Russia to shoot down F-16 from the air. After all, they will probably stay holed up like Challenger tanks. Just a few days after being happy, an accident happened. The Ukrainian F-16 crashed and the pilot died. How on earth was it shot down 700 kilometers from Russia? The Russia-Ukraine conflict has lasted for 918 days. Since Ukraine received the first batch of about 10 F-16 fighter jets in July, the Ukrainian sympathizers have been looking forward to it and eagerly expecting the Ukrainian Air Force to dominate with F-16 fighter jets during this period. Many false news spread, such as the Ukrainian Air Force launching a major counteroffensive in Kursk immediately after receiving F-16s, the Russian aerospace forces being too timid to fight, and the Ukrainian Air Force successively shooting down 3 95 bombers with F-16s, claiming an unprecedented victory in the eyes of the Ukrainian sympathizers. This F-16 fighter jet seems to have the power to destroy the world. However, the weapon-only theory of the Ukrainian sympathizers has been around for not just 1 or 2 days, and everyone is used to it unexpectedly. Just a few days after the Ukrainian army got the F-16 fighter jets, what they got was not a great victory in air combat, but the news of the plane being destroyed and the pilot dying. On August 26, local time, the Russian Aerospace Forces Long-Range Aviation and the Army's Tactical Rocket Forces launched a new round of large-scale missile attacks on Ukraine's strategic depth. After the attack ended, on August 28, a member of the Ukrainian Verkhovna Rada suddenly posted on Telegram that a Ukrainian pilot died on the 26th while defending against Russian missile attacks. Allegedly, this pilot is named Alexei Mies, with the call sign Moonfish, and serves as the deputy brigade commander of the 204th Tactical Aviation Brigade of the Ukrainian Air Force. The outside world was surprised to find that Alexei Mies is one of the pilots sent by the Ukrainian Air Force to NATO countries for F-16 fighter jet modification training at the end of last year. Since he can be appointed as the Deputy Brigade Commander, he must be an elite pilot. The 204th Tactical Aviation Brigade is also the only F-16 fighter jet combat unit of the Ukrainian Army soon. The news that the Ukrainian Army's F-16 fighter jet was shot down by the Russian aerospace forces and the pilot died quickly spread on the Ukrainian domestic network. The news circulated for 2 days, and the Ukrainian side was extremely secretive about it. On August 29th, the Wall Street Journal took the lead in breaking the news, saying that an F-16 fighter jet of the Ukrainian Air Force crashed on August 26th. Obviously, this echoes the news of Moonfish death later. The famous female governor of Ukraine and the deputy director of the Security, Defense and Intelligence Committee of the Verkhovna Rada, Mariana Bezulagya, also posted that Moonfish indeed died while piloting an F-16 fighter jet. But she attributed the crash of this F-16 fighter jet to the identification of friend or foe problem, claiming that it was mistakenly hit by Ukraine's own Patriot air defense missile in short. In any case, the Ukrainian F-16 fighter jet can be said to have died before achieving any success. One crashed before achieving any achievements, and a deputy brigade commander was also lost. So, how did the Ukrainian Air Force's F-16 fighter jet disappear? Was it shot down by the Russian aerospace forces as speculated by the outside world? Or was it destroyed in the missile attack by the Russian aerospace forces? Or was it mistakenly hit by the Ukrainian ground-based missile as the female governor said? In my opinion, the possibility that the Ukrainian Air Force's F-16 is shot down by the Russian aerospace forces is almost zero on the one hand. Judging from the deployment location of the Ukrainian Army's 204th Tactical Aviation Brigade, it is indeed, as we said before, in a place that is even difficult for an atomic bomb to affect. Just a few days ago, the Ukrainian Air Force accidentally leaked information during public relations activities and revealed the deployment location of this aviation brigade. The Russian side judged from the terrain that the Ukrainian Army's F-16 fighter jets are deployed in the capital of Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast in western Ukraine. This was originally a base for the frontline aviation of the Soviet Air Force. It has one runway, one taxiway that can also be used as a runway, and more than 40 camouflaged reinforced concrete hangars. This airport is nearly 900 kilometers away from Donetsk and more than 700 kilometers away from the nearest Russian border, which is close to the combat radius of the F-16 fighter jet. In the case of using typical combat loads, the F-16 is very difficult to have sufficient airtime at such a long distance. The Ukrainian Army deploys the F-16 fighter jets so far away, most likely to avoid being hit by Russian tactical missiles and cruise missiles. If the distance is farther, the difficulty of Russian reconnaissance will increase and the warning time for cruise missiles will also be longer. On the other hand, inferring its combat application from the deployment location of the F-16, my view is that the Ukrainian Army currently has no intention of putting the F-16 fighter jet into air combat at all. The distance from the rear airport to the front line is too long, judging from the combat radius and airtime of the F-16 fighter jet. It will have to return soon after reaching the front line and the effective air control time is too short. In fact, in terms of the combat radius of a typical light fighter like the F-16, whether it is for air defense interception or air combat patrol, it is best not to be more than 400 kilometers away from the contact line. The Ukrainian Army has deployed the F-16 so far now. Obviously, it has no intention of using it for air combat. It may only use the F-16 for deep air defense, or let the F-16 carry JASSM cruise missiles to attack outside the defense zone and then quickly evacuate. It may not even go to the forward airfield very much to ensure the safety of the F-16 fighter jet. Therefore, as long as it avoids war, It will not be destroyed. The application of the Russian aerospace forces in the conflict is similar to the application of the troops of the frontline aviation of the Soviet Air Force. The frontline aviation cluster only needs to be responsible for the front and attack depth of the coordinated ground cluster. The strategic depth outside the depth of the ground cluster is struck by the long-range aviation and naval surface ships. Since the F-16 fighter jet does not come at all, then the fighter jets of the frontline aviation have no chance to engage it. The scene of the Su-35s fighting against the F-16 fighter jet does not seem to appear, for the time being so. Is this F-16 fighter jet attacked by cruise missiles of the Russian aerospace forces, long-range aviation and naval surface forces? And is the plane and the pilot destroyed in the base? There is such a possibility. But the possibility is not great. On the one hand, judging from the reconnaissance and surveillance capabilities of the Russian aerospace forces and the Combined Arms Group Army of the Army, the currently covered range is only up to the frontline airports of the Ukrainian army. It can be seen from the recent successive bombings of airports in Mirgorod, Poltava, Kryvyi Rog and other places of the Ukrainian army that the Russian army still has certain surveillance CE capabilities for targets within the battle depth to 100 kilometers of the Combined Arms Group Army, and can basically achieve all-weather surveillance. The time for constructing the kill chain after finding the target is within 30 minutes. Meeting the requirements for striking time-sensitive targets, however, for targets outside the battle depth of the Combined Arms Group Army, the performance of the Russian army is slightly insufficient. For example, for targets in Kyiv, Odessa, especially in western Ukraine, it is basically still necessary to rely on a combination of human intelligence and space reconnaissance for calibration, and the time for constructing the kill chain is very long therefore. For the F-16 fighter jets deployed in Ivano-Frankivsk in western Ukraine, the Russian army may only be able to determine that there are F-16s in this airport. But as for which hangar the F-16 is parked in, what is its immediate status, which plane is being serviced, and which plane has just landed, the Russian army probably does not have this reconnaissance ability. Since there is no such ability, then saying that cruise missiles can blow up the plane and the pilot is somewhat a matter of luck. On the other hand, the fortified construction of the Ivano-Frankivsk air base where the F-16 fighter jets are deployed is very in place. Just those 40 strong hangars alone require about 60 cruise missiles and ballistic missiles with penetrating warheads to strike. If a paralyzing operation is to be carried out on this base, according to our view, at least 1 or 2 brigades need to fire in salvo, and the number of missiles used needs to reach triple digits according to the report of the Ukrainian army. In the missile attack carried out by the Russian army on August 26, only more than 100 missiles were launched in total, and the vast majority of them are subsonic cruise missiles. The number of missiles allocated to this air base may be only in single digits. These missiles can be good if they can hit places such as the base's oil depot and weapons depot, and can cause certain delays to the Ukrainian army's use of F-16 fighter jets. But if it is said that the plane and the pilot are directly blown to pieces, it still comes back to the first aspect mentioned earlier. This possibility is not non-existent, but it is really too coincidental. If this is really the case, then the experience of the Deputy Brigade Commander Moonfish is really too unlucky, since it was neither shot down by the Russian aerospace forces in air combat nor was it likely to be blown to pieces by Russian cruise missiles. Then there may be only 3 real reasons for the loss of this first F-16 fighter jet of Ukraine. First, it may have crashed after being affected by the fragments of Russian cruise missiles or drones, exploding while shooting down Russian cruise missiles. Last year, there were 2 such outrageous incidents in the Ukrainian Air Force, and to make 29 fighter jets were lost. But obviously, after the accident, It is impossible for the Ukrainian army not to change the rules of engagement. So the possibility of such an accident happening again is not great. Second, the pilot's own level is insufficient. And while flying, he has a close contact with the ground. Judging from the training level of Ukrainian Air Force F-16 fighter jet pilots revealed by the NATO side, there is such a possibility. NATO countries reflect that the level of Ukrainian Air Force pilots is relatively poor, and they may not even be very good at aviation English. However, whether it is being affected when shooting down Russian cruise missiles or the pilot himself flying the plane to the ground, the plane should not be so late that there is no time for parachuting. It is impossible to involve the pilot as well. Therefore, although the possibility of this F-16 fighter jet being damaged due to these two situations is relatively high, it is not that high. Having said so much, on the contrary, it is most likely that it is the Ukrainian army's own ground-based missile defense system that shot down its own fighter jet. But it is really hard to say whether it is the Patriot missile that shot it down. Both the Patriot system and the F-16 fighter jet are equipped with the standard NATO identification of friend or foe system according to the engagement rules of the Patriot. After the tactics are deployed, a missile firepower kill zone must be designated. Targets entering the firepower kill zone are intercepted according to the engagement rules. For targets intercepted by the guidance station, the identification of friend or foe staff must press the identification of friend or foe button in an automatic and manual inquiry way. After determining the nature of the target, can they get the order to fire from the company battalion commander? In other words, there is a complete set of identification of friend or foe procedures with multiple control nodes to avoid friendly fire. As a result, did the Ukrainian army fire so carelessly? Either there is a problem with the identification of friend or foe procedure, or there is a problem with the engagement procedure, or the one that shot down the F-16 is not the Patriot missile at all, but the Ukrainian army's own S-300P. However, no matter which aspect has a problem, it can only show that the air defense combat capability of the Ukrainian Air Force is indeed relatively weak. Even if NATO teaches it hand in hand, it still doesn't turn out well. However, it is still early. Ukraine has just put the F-16 fighter jet into battle, and there are still many F-16 fighter jets to be delivered later, although one has been lost at present. I think we still need to observe whether the Ukrainian army's F-16 fighter jets, especially after the early warning aircraft is in place, can make innovations in the use of troops. Let's wait and see for now.